What is up, FIFA Tears? Hello and welcome back to the FUT Tears podcast, Extra Time, with myself, LAJS, with B-Rad 86 and Mersgoth. How are you all doing on this fine evening?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
I'm loving it.
Yes, indeed. So we've got a few questions lined up this week it's a week that covers a huge amount of controversy. We'll start off though with a FIFA-based question. This was sent on Twitter by our friends over at Nothing But a Foot Thing podcast. We will get straight into their question of your FIFA 23 starter team. What league are you going for mainly? Obviously, you can use anything. You can do hybrids. You can do whatever you want. Where are you focusing your energy?
So, I don't know if other people want to take this first, because I feel like mine's going to be a really boring reply. Because I feel like I'm probably going to it's going to be dependent on what I get in packs. So I'm not really, I've got no plans to do like a specific tailored RTG. I've got no plans to center my channel around a player or anything like that. So I'm kind of open to if at the start, because I will put points on at the start of the game, I always do. But if I do manage to get say, I don't know, let's just pick a player out. So say I got the Bayern Munich Gravenberch, okay, and he looks like a good card and I like him, then I probably will look to build a Bundesliga Dutchy type hybrid type team, I suppose. But it all just depends on that. Maybe if I get what decent untradables I get that I think I want to use in the game. And obviously with chemistry and stuff being all different, it'll be interesting to explore different ways of making hybrids and where I can get the most out of my team. So nothing set for me as it stands. I've not seen too many of potential cards and ratings. I mean, if I would, because I've done it a little bit in the past. I didn't do it as much because he's not very usable in game. But if they made Haaland's card usable in game, if come FIFA 23 he's usable, then I would love to center my team around him again. But he's always clunky. Even this new moments card feels clunky.
Oh, I disagree with that. And I also do enjoy Haaland. Maybe it's because I've enjoyed Haaland's card all year. I liked his gold card. His only weakness for me was that you had to get him on his left foot and he didn't have skills. So I say only weakness, that's 2. I didn't mind how clunky he was. He was a target man to aim for. He sort of changed games from a different way. It depends on what kind of way you like to play. Whether you like to play skills, whether you like to have hold up, which Haaland was good for me. I am known for using a certain man, therefore I have to build a certain way. So there will be Bundesliga in some influence. Cough, cough, scarf in background. But yeah, I think it's mainly going to be built around, say, an Andre Silva. I would want to get in Kunku. That was pretty much the buildings of my team the entirety of the year 2021 for FIFA 22. Up to December, it was pretty much those two or bust in any team. But I'd like to think I'll do something stupid like I always do. So veer off in the direction of maybe the Portuguese league, easy links with Portugal for nation, or even go somewhere like... This is actually sounding very unoriginal now. Veering over to the Liga, there's going to be some OP cards there. Obviously, Renato Sanchez will be expected to be a fortune at the start of FIFA. I say a fortune. He's probably going to be... I reckon a board maybe. He's going to be 83, 84. Because he's... What is he standard now? Is he 80? No, his 82 was the signature signings, right? So he's probably 80, 79. So you might get an upgrade to an 82 or something. Therefore, it'll be easy to pull. Who knows? Maybe you can build a cheap part of a team there. But it's mainly going to be Bundesliga focused.
As for me, I'll be running the 2 accounts. And I think... on my second account, I think with the changes that they've made to the chemistry style, I think it's a perfect year to do a past and present. Because in previous years, when it gets to getting the past players and they're in an offshoot league, it's it's a bit harder to get them in the team unless you're using former players that are now icon cards or something like that. So that freedom to now just put in someone like Ozil, from like this FIFA, you got the card, but I'm like, I really want to use it, but it's Turkish league, it's German. There's no real like Arsenal players that can link to him, just to even have him on partial chemistry or something like that. And I haven't really had any icons except for like Thierry Henry. So it's like, now I can go, oh yeah, I can pop that into the team if I really want it, if he has a sort of half decent card come out. So the one team will start off with like the Arsenal players and maybe some former Arsenal players that are, like got some half decent starter cards, and then build from that. And then as for my main account, I'm probably just going to do a full on pack to glory, basically. So just like first owner players, SBC players and stuff like that. So I'll just see whatever I get through the packs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question: how much bias is there going to be on your Arsenal past and present? So what I mean by that is the way they left. Is that going to factor in? So Aubameyang now being at Chelsea, Van Persie's icon card. Is there going to be a place for cards like that, or is that going to be a bit of a sore spot? Do you reckon?
No, that's perfectly fine. I don't mind. Like I like using Aubameyang in FIFA. If he gets, if I pack him or he has like a decent looking card, and I can easily afford it, then I'm gonna get it. Van Persie's the same sort of situation. I mean, technically speaking, he spent most of his career at Arsenal. Yeah, sure, it was a bit of an annoying situation that he went to Man United, but at the same time, players got to do what they feel is right for their career at the same time. So, hey ho, City and Co. I'll use anybody that's played, like Fabregas, for instance. Again, played for Chelsea. I'll happily use them. No, it's fine. As long as they've played for Arsenal. Even if, maybe even Kane, because he used to play for the youth setup and stuff like that.
Be a very interesting one to see sneak him in there, I won't lie. But that is, I guess, the first part of the question. Thank you for submitting said question. The main situation we have to tackle is, well, VAR this week. Venom's come in with the question, and it is, if you're in charge of VAR, what would you change to make it work better? Who wants to lead on this? Because that's quite a bold topic and relevant, but quite a big one to get into.
Who wants to lead?
I mean, there's two ways of approaching this answer. Competent on-field managers, or not managers, referees, or more competent referees in the room. Now, there was, we're talking about all the bad decisions that are made. There was actually one good decision that was made by a referee who was called up by the VAR to have a look at something. Yeah. And rather than changing his mind and going with the VAR, which is what has happened with a lot of the referees, he actually stuck to what he thought was the right decision. And it was the right decision. Yep. So, kudos. What is it, Michael Oliver?
Michael Oliver was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Kudos to you for sticking to your guns and making the right decision and not joining the list of other referees this weekend that have made god-awful decisions thanks to VAR.
So there's a couple of points about the main decision we're talking about, and it's talking about the person in the VAR booth being a more experienced referee and that influencing someone who's not as experienced. Now, if this is the case, then my question would be, do we need to then change the way that works? So does the more experienced referee have to be outfield and the inexperienced referee is just the one saying, you need to come and have a look at this? Because if they're going to have some pull on what is being done down in the game, considering they're not on the pitch, they're not part of the game in terms of, like, when I say, like, you know, the feel of a game or how a game is played on pitch, where, like, say, for instance, certain derbies or certain teams, they are going to be physical games, or it's the way they play, and certain things you have to allow. So that means that challengers have a different threshold. Then that decision can't really be made or influenced by somebody in the booth because they're not there and down on the pitch. So if that is the case, then that shouldn't be happening. But I'm with Mers. Like it doesn't. The VAR. Let's be right in saying VAR doesn't need to change. The concept, the idea of VAR doesn't need to be changed. What needs to happen is there are strict rules and guidelines on decisions and on what people should be doing, and they're not following them. The reason it's going wrong is because they're going against those strict guidelines, or they're finding these ever such slight grey areas that maybe do need a bit of ironing out, and they're the things that are changing the game. Things that, this phrase, we keep hearing it, clear and obvious. Like there's a lot of decisions that have been changed that are not clear and obvious fouls, or not clear and obvious decisions to be changed. So it's that sort of stuff that needs doing. It's not VAR. VAR will work when it's used by the right people, in the right ways, basically.
So would you say something like the Erdegaard foul on Ericsson in the United game's an example of something that wasn't clear and obvious that did get changed as one sort of incident?
I didn't see that game today.
What happened there was in motion. Ericsson looks to have gone over somewhat softly. There is no contact with the ball from Erdegaard, but he's sort of in slow motion from a certain angle. You can see that he catches him with his. I think he sort of catches him with his knee as he sort of goes around to try and get the ball, and then Ericsson's fallen over in straight line, trying to look for the foul straight away. So he's definitely looking for it. Played on. I'd recommend you have a look at it, and it's just first thing on sort of the highlights that you will see. So whilst we sort of cover other things, let's talk about the Chelsea game with West Ham. Late goal scored by Cornet.
Mm-hmm.
A foot's left on the goalkeeper. I know goalkeepers are protected, but does that constitute a disallowed goal?
Not in a million years.
Because as a goalkeeper myself, I can definitely say there's been stuff where things favour. There was an outrageous one in my real life situation where I should have come for a cross. I haven't. I've just charged into someone, and because I've hit the floor and rolled around a little bit, I've been given a free kick rather than conceding.
Mm-hmm.
So are goalkeepers? I'll bring this onto a slightly side topic. Are goalkeepers overprotected, or do you think they've got a reasonable amount of protection? And if we sort of take away some of this, it'd lead to more injuries, or what we? So it's got overprotected.
It's got to be in certain situations, isn't it? So, like we look at like that the situation with Edison last week, where they are saying like the ball wasn't released out of his hand, so that is a foul because he shouldn't be taking it away. It's not left his possession. That's why that got disallowed. So in that situation, the rules clearly state if the ball hasn't clearly left the hand, which as you saw it in slow motion, it was still looks like it was still attached to his fingertips, or you certainly couldn't say for definite it is not attached to his fingertips anymore, then that case is different. But for me, for this situation, only looked worse for Mendy on VAR. So it slowed down, and you clearly see him look up and see, I'm not. This is going to happen now. They're going to score. I'm going to go and hold my shoulder. But the actual contact was so like, it was a glaze of foot over his shoulder. Like it wasn't like he went in open studded or went in sliding him. Like it was barely even a brush, and he's gone down like he's been shot in the shoulder. And that's what has given it, or has ended up being disallowed on the goal, which is ridiculous. So like, I think whilst goalkeepers are more protected and there are guidelines and rules around them that do protect them more, if that is going to VAR to look at that incident, that is clear as day to me that as he goes down and looks up to see that they've regained possession of the ball, he then lays back down and holds his shoulder.
Yeah.
So in talking of changes then, would you say one thing that could, if we're changing VAR and looking to improve it, do you think not showing it in as slow a detail, so things are taken almost out of context with how slow, and we've seen on Twitter all the time that suddenly one person takes a still image of one particular bit and you'll see, oh, clearly this must be a red card tackle, and then you see it in motion and it's not. Or if something... Do you think then if we increase the speed of VAR, don't slow it down as much so that things are a bit more in context? You see them go at full speed. You show them it at full speed and then you show it really slowed down. Do you think if we reduce the slow-mo, would that improve things? Or do you think that would be a waste of time and not worth it?
They should definitely not rely so much on the slowed down footage. Like if it's a case of they need to see it from a certain angle and using the slowed down footage, and okay, look at that, but at the same time mainly focus on the full speed of things, because at the end of the day it's a fast paced game. You know, things happened at a fast pace. You can you could take a still image, like say for instance, and that image could show a little bit of contact with a player. So that does that mean that still image looks like that's a foul? Not necessarily. Like if you see a full pace, the person might have actually got 99% of the ball, but got that little 1% on the player. Player goes down, does a little bit of acting, makes it look like he's just, you know, being shot and stuff like that, like how Mendy did, and then it's like, oh, okay, it was a foul. But then when you look at full speed, it's like, no, it was perfectly a good challenge and stuff like that. And in the situation with Bowen, right, what do you want him to do? Like somehow do a massive leap over Mendy? Like he's at the Olympics or something like that, doing
high jump
or something like that. Yeah, like at that pace, he's going to get a little bit of contact, no matter what in that situation, because he's trying to go for the ball. Mendy's trying to go for the ball and try and save and stuff like that. So
he hasn't taken him out of the game, has he? He hasn't.
Exactly.
He hasn't hit him so much there that Mendy couldn't physically get up and save that shot.
And in some ways,
just stayed down because it's the easiest thing to do, knowing that, like, I mean, because the thing is, right? Say, put it on the other side of that situation. If Mendy gets up from that, because let's not forget, it weren't like that ball came out and they shot straight away. He had to make space. Reece James was closing him down, still trying to get there. So that would give Mendy time to scramble back into the goal line. That may change that whole, like, form of attack there. He might look and think, oh, now Mendy's got back in goal and I've got a couple of defenders there, I'm now going to look to square this, or I'm going to look to do something else. But it's just because Mendy stayed down is the reason why Cornet's been able to shoot from where he has. So that also plays into that decision in general. Like he's only shot there because he's on the floor, and he's only on the floor because he looked up and saw that Aston Villa were in possession. West Ham were in possession.
And so that's the other thing. Referees don't even look at that bit. They don't look at like that section afterwards where where if they looked at that and saw Mendy clearly not holding on to himself just for about a few seconds, suddenly look to the ball, see this, assessing the situation is in his head essentially, and then he's gone, oh, actually this does not look like a good situation. I don't know if I can make it back up and stuff like that. And then suddenly, then he clutches his arm and stuff, and it's a part of his arm that in some ways didn't even really get touched.
No.
He's like acting like his shoulder's been dislocated or something.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is, if to look at further situations, so an example from years gone by, a famous one, is almost like the Sergio Busquets peekaboo, or the David Luiz laughing by the corner flag when Fabio or Rafael, I can't remember which one, kicks in by the corner flag, something like that for a reaction afterwards.
Yeah.
See if it is almost like a looking for it and then going back down.
Yeah.
Or it's
Ronaldo wink.
Insigne, I think, has gone down before, and then the goal got scored, and then he suddenly got back up or something.
Oh, there's many an account of someone getting straight up after a
getting up straight away running over to the corner flag to celebrate the goal. Suddenly you're not injured anymore.
Rashford today comes to mind. So when Rashford's gone down, Arsenal are attacking, they're trying to get the ball out of play, and then suddenly the ball comes near him again. He's up on his feet, passing the ball around and getting back involved again.
Yeah.
But to get back to the speed of the play, this is what I think. I think that if you slow down the play, you should only really do it on something like the Leeds penalty that wasn't given today. So what that is, if you've not seen that incident, well, it wasn't today, it was yesterday, but the point is, it was on whether it was inside the box, the contact or not, because the contact starts outside the box, and they were checking. They ruled in the end that the contact did not happen in the box, and it was not a penalty. Jesse Marsch gets sent off. That
was ridiculous.
So, do you think that that's when slow motion should be used for? Okay, judging, where does the contact begin / in that case end? Does it end in the box? Is it outside the box and then he collapses into the box? That could be when slow motion and things like that are used, and offsides, etc., for making sure the right frame when the ball leaves. But when it comes to contact and fouls and red cards, that it should be more in motion. You're seeing the tackle as it happens at not full speed, maybe not full speed, but not to the levels they're slowing down to show individual little tiny touches.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be a better use.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you know where the margin of error is, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Like the Trippier and Kevin De Bruyne situation, because obviously that was shown in slow speed, but when you look at a high speed, it's like Trippier is going for the ball.
Mm-hmm. So, and talking of VAR, there's a sort of a question I think that's linked here. It's definitely someone trying to trying to take shots at Conor Cody and Liverpool here. He mentions we mentioned it on the standard episode of the podcast released during the week, but Conor Cody celebrating the way he did against his boyhood club, for that to be offside. What are your opinions on that? I'm going to take that in a completely different direction. About the Richarlison situation where he got booked for taking his shirt off, and then the goal's not been given, he's still got the yellow card. Do we think that should be a thing if you're getting punished for? Do you think that's something where the punishment, they've met the punishment, that's irrelevant whether the goal's been allowed, like the referees have clearly done here? Or do you think goal's not happened, the celebration's technically not happened?
Yeah. How can you punish someone for reacting off something that you've now disallowed?
I mean,
it's almost like the phase of play didn't exist, I guess.
Yeah. So that is backwards to me. Like you're punishing a guy for doing something that was a reaction off something that you're now saying didn't happen. So I don't understand how he's still got a yellow card there. The yellow card is a reaction off a goal that you've now taken away, so you have to rescind the yellow card. You have to.
No, but no. We're talking about Richarlison here, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's taken his shirt off. Yes, it's a reaction and stuff like that to a disallowed goal and stuff, but the rules are you can't take your shirt off, basically. So he's taken his shirt off. So whether or not it's a goal or not, he's essentially broken a rule, so he has to get given a yellow card. You can't be like, well, it's been disallowed. You broke the rules. No, never mind. I won't give you the yellow card for it because it got overturned, basically. Rules are rules, basically.
I was going to try and make a counter argument but then I remembered it's not. The example I was going to use doesn't work. I was going to say if an incident's not in play, then would it not be deemed involved? But the one I thought of was Lamela and Martial in the Spurs United game when there's a corner and Lamela's hit the deck off of absolutely nothing and got Martial sent off. Controversial decision in its own right, but there was no penalty given afterwards because the ball wasn't in play. So it was a separate incident. So I guess in that sense, then I probably agree that he's done a yellow card offence. It's a yellow card. Whether what's happened's not relevant at that stage as much as entertainment, passion. You're going to see less passionate celebrations now, and is that going to take away from the game in a separate way?
The thing is that goal, like in this scenario, what you've got is the goal affects the game. Yeah, so the goal will have an impact on the game, and that goal's been taken away. Likewise, a yellow card has an impact on the game. A yellow card makes him like change going in for certain challenges in a way that he might, because he knows he hasn't got the backing of the fact that he's not got a yellow card anymore. I just find that because one's a knock-on effect of the other, it has to be rescinded. Like, I get what you're saying, Mers, like it is a yellow card offence, but it's a yellow card offence of a circumstance that has now been rescinded or taken away. So I feel like that, I think like, I hate saying it because we're saying like there shouldn't be any discretion, but it's for taking a shirt off, right? It's not like, say for instance, a scenario where Richarlison scored that goal and there went over and there was a bit of pushing and shoving with players afterwards because of that goal, and they related in getting a yellow card, and then you're talking about them rescinding, because that falls under a different thing. That's like violent conduct and things like that.
I think I have something that can help you out with your argument here, Brad. An example of, so if a person's caught offside and then the Trippier, say the Trippier tackle happens, but turns out De Bruyne was offside, the yellow would be rescinded.
Yes.
That sort of thing, I think, is where you're looking. That's what I think you're trying to get at.
Well, yeah, that's it. Like it is. Yeah, it's the same. In my opinion, it is the same.
If someone commits a yellow card tackle and turns out the player was offside, the yellow gets rescinded.
Yeah.
Why is it not the same for that? And it's going to reduce.
And that's for a tackle that could actually injure a player. Still, bear in mind, but that yellow card would still get rescinded. Yeah. This guy is just taking his shirt off. That's all he's done.
But maybe that's just where an adjustment of the rule book needs to be made.
Which is where I would have tackled VAR. Is help certain things. It definitely happened with a handball rule for a long while. Is there's discrepancies over what is and what isn't a handball, what isn't an offside, how big the margin is. It's things like that. It's the fact that nothing's black and white.
No, there's too
a
much
lot
grey.
of grey. Whether they need to clamp down on the rules in some shape or form, there needs to be less grey area, and whether that's then taking the fun out of football, where everything's being overanalyzed or underanalyzed, there needs to be less grey. So, in my opinion, as much as the time thing I think would help, it would probably also increase some grey area in a different way. The grey is the problem. VAR's not the problem. It's just that the rules don't align with VAR.
Yeah.
That then you look at everything the micro situations that happen as a result, i.e. Edison's issue last week. It will all come back to, well, that's the rules, or well, the rules haven't been followed here. The refereeing standard's not good enough, as much as I do and said on the previous podcast that it is a very difficult job, and I don't envy them doing it. The standard is not good enough.
No. It's a combination of the two, isn't it? Yeah, if you get rid of the greyness, and then actually also that maybe then one gives much more clarity to the referees, but also will hopefully improve what is clearly just straight out incompetence at the moment.
And if you change the rules, then honestly, you'll see because a lot of arguments you see is, oh well, so and so got away with it in the past. Yeah, but the rules have changed.
Yes.
Is that, and then it sets a new precedent. This is the precedent we're setting. As for what those rules are, I'm not even going to get started on what that is. But for me, that would probably be the way to tackle it. The only issue of yellows like Richarlison's there is that could affect his availability, obviously, until the halfway stage in the season. 5 yellow cards would get him suspension. I believe he's now on 3. So that puts him even closer to a suspension. But moving on, we will go to our final question of the Q&A, and that will be coming from the nation's favourite, GH. And surprisingly, I heard
dubbed him
groan.
that, by the way.
I just sarcastically did. But what we will say is actually it is not an outrageous one from him. It's a fairly reasonable one. Might have even already technically been answered, but who would you say has been the best transfer in Europe this season?
Oh, okay.
Who
Actual
wants to lead
question.
off with this? It's an actual question. It's nothing food based. We've not had anything food based for a while. Please contact us with your food based questions, as we do like to have Brad talking about fruits and nut.
Yeah,
But
baby.
who wants to lead off with this? Best transfer of the season? Any takers?
So there's an obvious one, but I don't want to say the obvious one, which is Haaland, basically.
Yeah, let's all stay away from that.
Let's all avoid Haaland. Okay, so excluding Mr. Was it, how many goals is it now in 6
10.
games? 9,
10.
10?
10.
10 in 6 games. So let's just white
Already
slate
double
clean.
digits.
Everyone else, yeah, this would normally take. But who's the closest person to him? Mitrovic, probably.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah. Or Tony, maybe.
Got 3 the other day, which we didn't even really address. That was the only thing I mentioned about was the penalty incident. But excluding Haaland, I'm tempted to say Sadio Mane as a shout.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what's happened to Liverpool pre and post Mane. You can't put everything about Mane leaving on this, but the fact that he's settling into Germany fairly well at striker, replacing Lewandowski, and Liverpool are definitely spluttering.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, we talk about Mitrovic. Like, I'm going to say it right here, right now. Mitrovic will score more goals than any Liverpool forward.
I'm here for you going this controversial, but jeez, what do you think the spread between the forwards is going to be too much, or how many goals do you think Mitrovic is hitting? Actually, this is a starting point here.
I reckon
Maybe
Mitrovic will get to maybe 18, 19.
You reckon 18, 19? So
Yeah.
Considering the seasons Liverpool have had in recent times, considering Salah's becoming more of a creator, I've started to notice.
He's past it.
He's past it. Wow. I mean, he is certainly, I would say, struggling a little bit, like in terms of being the focal point or the end product, especially at the moment.
He's going to also become that thing where the longer and longer he goes, the like more he struggles to get it to happen. So
he's going to struggle with his mojo.
I will say, I'll tell you what then. Let me change. I'll change it ever so slightly because obviously we've got to take into account that they'll have more competitions to play than Fulham. So Premier League, sorry. So I'll say Mitrovic will score more Premier League goals than any other Liverpool forward.
Interesting. I mean, he's got double Firmino and Diaz at the moment. I'm trying to see if there's any other Liverpool ones on 3. It doesn't look like it. So at the moment it's Diaz and it is Firmino leading the charge with Nunez still on 1. So
Nunez isn't going to get close.
Yeah.
I love how harsh you're being for a side that won 9-0 the other week.
I know, and Salah still didn't score. Well done. Honestly, like trying to take that goal line goal. But that's because it was a goal line goal. Like it wasn't like he was 20 yards out. He was basically inside the goal with your left foot because you haven't got a right is insane. Like just tap it in with your right foot or just throw your body at it for God's sakes. It's getting this close now to having not scored, considering how prolific he has been, that you just throw everything at that. God, just like put down your shorts and whap your old Todger out and throw that at it. Like you can't. Whatever you've got to just get that ball over the line, I'm afraid. But yeah, he's not gonna score as many this season as he has done in previous seasons, and Mitrovic is going to outscore them all. In terms of my I mean we can't say Haaland and that. I think I'm going to go a little bit more because I think generally across the board I have said they're going to have a bad season because I do believe they are going to have a bad season. I think that'll be Premier League and UCL, and so far, like it has looked a bit ropey for them. I still think they're going to come away with one of the best defensive signings, and I'm going to say that Koulibaly to Chelsea.
interesting, especially considering he's had a red card already.
He has had a red card, yeah, but I just think that he is going to become like a talisman centre back for them, because like they've found themselves in a position where they're basically having to change their whole defensive line, and I was really skeptical about it. But when I watched the Spurs game and watched like just kind of like seeing what his potential is going to be once he finds his feet in the Premier League a little bit, I just think he's going to be, I think he's going to be their centre back talisman.
Okay, all right.
I don't watch
Definitely
enough
not
of
what I was
like other
expecting.
leagues. I don't watch enough of other leagues. Well, no, I mean what I would have said if we weren't going to put him off the table was Haaland, but like we said, it's too easy and it's too obvious. But
Yeah, there's sitters and there's what Salah missed the other week.
yeah.
I'm gonna go with a goalkeeper. I'm gonna say Dean Henderson to Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
Because
Very left field pick.
There's like
feel
30,000 players you could pick from Nottingham Forest.
I could have picked like a choice of two different squads, but not Nottingham Forest. But yeah, I think Dean Henderson in particular for them, because of the pure fact that I believe the amount of saves that he will make, similar to when he was at Sheffield United. I think he's going to be the difference maker between how many clean sheets, how many like less goals are going to concede versus like expected goals conceded. And at the end of the season, that is going to probably be the difference maker between them going down and them staying up. And I think
he's definitely going to keep the tally down, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to help them collect those points along the way that will get them to like that sort of like 40 points, I think they say, is like the safety mark basically within the Premier League. So I reckon he is basically going to be that difference maker for them.
I don't disagree with that shout.
Okay. About to say, in the same vein, Neco Williams is also a shout for that. Neco Williams had a good start to the season, coming in with assists, been solid defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So you could argue one of the 21 different signings that Forest made, but those two seem like the early standouts at least.
Yeah. What I was going to say to you, and I'd forgot to sort of mention this, but now I've mentioned about Salah, like with the struggling to score goals and that, is like, do you start to see this becoming a thing with Son? Like he's come so close, obviously this weekend.
This weekend, the weekend before, he's doing everything right, but the finish.
He's getting
in position still,
which is good to see. But do you think it becomes a point where it starts to like get in his head a little bit?
I think it's already in his head very much so. I think 6 games in, it's definitely in more than the back of his mind. It's probably more the frontal lobe. But I'm honestly, and this isn't even me being harsh, I'm calling for him to be on the bench and to come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
As much as his influence of him and Kane is huge for how Tottenham have been the last probably three odd years, I think Richarlison, with the energy he showed in the Fulham game, Richarlison comfortably man of the match in that game.
Yeah.
He was everywhere, didn't stop running from the first to the last whistle, got himself an assist, might have looked like he was going to have the ball stuck at his feet, but he got it off to Højbjerg on the 1-2. He had his own goal, but it was offside. We've spoken about the celebration and how that's not gone well for him, but
yeah.
He
seems to be linking up with Kane really well already. Like
exactly.
He's in really good form and getting him behind, and even when he came up, so games have changed when he's come on the pitch.
Yeah.
That's the first time he started, but when he came on against Chelsea seemed rattled for a few minutes. They then collected themselves and made it 2-1. But he ended up being part of what caused us to get the goal back.
Yeah.
It was almost something different coming at the team.
Yeah.
In every time I've seen him, he's looked good. And as much as 60 million seemed like an outrageous joy, it's actually... I'm sticking with Mane, by the way, but he's an underrated signing, I believe. People look at Richarlison and go 60 million for a bench option. I call him a bench option. He's been great off the bench, and he's been great starting now.
Yeah.
So, as much as he's not got a goal, he's got 2 assists. The class one against Forest last week. He's got the one this week, which is just a simple layoff, but he's influencing games. And Son, at the moment, isn't. And I think, more than anything, firstly, Spurs need to rotate anyway because we've got a European game. Then we've got City at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs are going to desperately need to rotate at the moment. And I think if you rest Son, not even rest him, I won't use the term rest, if you bench Son and then bring him on, it's almost like a shock to the system because he's playing poorly in terms of finishing and he's still starting. He's still being called upon regularly.
Yeah.
It's almost like a statement to him. It's not like he's... Maybe in terms of Tottenham he is. It's like when Ten Hag starting benching Ronaldo. It's a bold statement and it sends a message to the player.
Yeah.
That we expect more of you. You need to deliver.
Yeah.
You have to, rather than just being a birthright of starting.
Well, yeah, because you can't, like, there's only a certain amount you can, like, wait for that player to do what you need them to do. You can't, like, you don't want to knock the confidence out of them, but at the same time, you can't keep playing them and them not giving you what you've paid them for, what they're meant to be doing on the pitch. And, he's probably he's had his games now, hasn't he? He's had his chances. And as it happens, and I think, this might be a different case and a different conversation if Son hasn't hit the ground running about Richarlison. Don't get me wrong, Richarlison, like you say, has performed so pretty well so far in a Tottenham shirt. But if, Son does some of the things that he's doing, maybe it's not as much of a focal point. But because of Son's performance, it is now. Do we then think, yeah, this is the time to now think, well, actually, I'm going to bench this guy, not to just stick the nail in the coffin, as it were, or anything like that. I'm just going to do it to let him know that he needs to put in that little bit more effort. And once he gets himself off the mark, then, we'll be back.
Potentially. But he just feels like he needs that almost like an extra bit of help. He needs something, whether it's a shock to the system. I don't want to start getting on a bandwagon and start hating on the guy.
No.
The guy's been incredible for us.
Yep.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're the most influential pairing in Premier League history in terms of statistically proven.
Yeah, definitely.
People hadn't been together as much, or others could have done better if they had spent longer together. But they are the record holders for most contributions between themselves. So at this point, it's not working. Hopefully, give him a wake up call, and that brings him back.
Yeah.
And maybe it is he needs a rest, even though there was obviously the whole of pre-season. Maybe he's still fatigued. Let's not forget Kane got off to a horrific start when stuff was going around in his head about whether he wanted to leave or not, and he still went on to have a great season. So I'm not saying this season's written off for Son, but I do think he needs that little shock just to get him almost try and click his head back into gear, get him working that bit harder in training, focusing a bit more on finishing. And with how things are going, as much as saying to drop him again, as he's always been the one that turns up against City.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from the last time out, in which he still was very influential, he was the one that squared it for Kulusevski for the opener. He's always influential against City. It would be a bold move to drop him for that game.
Yeah.
So maybe drop him for the European night, which I think's against, I could be wrong, I think it's Marseille is the opener. But maybe drop him for that game, see how he goes. If he's still not in form, you might have to drop him for the City game. But yeah, it's not something I envy Antonio Conte for, is a big decision like that.
No.
But that's what he gets paid the big bucks for, so I'm
This
sure
is
it'll be
true.
the right thing, and he'll come out the other side better.
Yeah. And like you say, like, the thing is, if you do that with him and he ends up, like, coming on as a sub and getting, like, a seriously important winner, then like, balance is restored, isn't it? Everything's been done. He suddenly feels, like he's back and he's made a massive difference, and then it's all been worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So it sends a message and sort of gets him to buck up his ideas. And talking of sending messages, remember you can submit questions yourself each week if you want to have your featured question. There is the Discord, there is the Twitter. Get in contact with us and send us your questions, because we do appreciate every question that's sent in and try and answer as many of them as we can. If they've not already been answered, or if it's been a long while, the opinions have changed, maybe we'll answer them again. But that has been all for this episode of Extra Time. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have, Mers. Brad, I don't know about you.
Yep, always a pleasure, never a chore.
Good, as always.
And we will see you next week for another episode. Peace out, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.